someone, and not unless Ed Davey finds me in a nightclub and cups me. If we weren't such good friends, I would have declined this interview. The Lib Dems, who cares? Boris Johnson used playing the clown to win the hearts of the British public, and he's trying to repeat the Boris Johnson play.
Let me get somebody else who's good at moaning as well. It's Nick Buckley, MBE. Greetings to you, Nick. How have you been?
I'm good, thank you. If we weren't such good friends, I would have declined this interview. The Lib Dems, who cares? It's like talking about paint drying. Who cares?
That's not very nice. I used to be a Lib Dem MP. But you care about me? What's wrong with me, Nick? I know you like me.
But the Lib Dems used to be a little bit more of a saviour's party a few decades ago.
Yeah, that's the issue I've got, really. Bottom line, I would never have put you down as a Lib Dem to begin with, really. More of an independent sort of soul. But the background to me was I joined the Liberal Democrats in 1989 when actually, in my view, they were a pretty serious party. They had a serious member of parliament and leader in the form of Paddy Ashdown, who basically did some hard graft in the special boat squad, the SBS. It's like the SAS, but underwater. And he was very persuasive. Not a perfect human being, but really charismatic. Now we've got Ed Davey. Just interesting. I presume that you've never been a keen advocate, or at least not for the last 15 or 20 years of the Lib Dems, Nick.
No, they were infected, just like Labour and the Tories were, with this woke, silly ideology of be pink, be fluffy. The world's amazing, the world's perfect, and it's only humans that damage the world and damage society. But if we could leave humans alone, they would just develop and create their own utopia. I believe all that sort of rubbish, and all three parties fell for that. The thing that's wrong with the Lib Dems now is at the moment they have no external pressure. Labour are being battered because they're in power and Reform are taking a lot of their working class votes. Tories are being battered at the election and are still going down in the polls, mainly because of Reform UK. Lib Dems, as you quite correctly you stated, I've only got 72 seats because of Reform. But I believe the Lib Dems think they won those seats. I think Lib Dems are looking at their strategy going, this is winning. We've got the most seats we've ever had because of Ed Davey, because he's trying to impersonate Boris Johnson to be a clown. Our policies must be fantastic because people are voting for us. And what they don't realise is no one's voting for them. They won those 72 seats by default, only because Reform took so many seats off the Tories when Reform weren't even that popular. If the election was today, I predict Lib Dems would be down probably to single seats because they offer nothing. People would have to vote for them because they actually want them. And I don't think people want them, just like they don't want the Tories and they don't want the Labour.
That's interesting that you'd say that. Under Nick Clegg, who I still think was even worse than Ed Davey, the party actually went down to 8 seats. The man was a total disaster area. There's an old joke. Why did Nick Clegg cross the road? Because he promised not to. And the guy was just morally bankrupt when it came to libertarianism. He supported no platform, the censorship of non-violent extremists at university campuses. Now, think about that. In other words, people who weren't even breaking the law or advocating the breaking of the law, but just had, in the views of somebody, undefined extreme views, should be censored. That's the absolute antithesis of why I joined the Lib Dems. I joined the Lib Dems because at that time it was libertarian. They wanted the world to be free. But then we had Nick Clegg, and I think that's when the rot really sets in.
Oh, yeah, and then don't forget, Nick Clegg then went to work for Facebook at the height of Facebook controlling all the information we can see and banning people off the platform and doing what governments told them to do. He went to work for them for millions of dollars a year.
Why do you think they accepted him, by the way?
Oh, I think because he fitted in with their ideology. He had he had lots of he was deputy prime minister. He had lots of contacts in the UK and across Europe, and I think they wanted to use him just like anybody employs anybody. He had skills, he had contacts, he had the experience that they thought they could monetize.
And yeah, I don't think he's done a particularly brilliant job there, to be honest with you. Um, that's my view. I'm not his boss or his line manager, but you just look at the way that Facebook has either staggered from problem to problem. There he is, self-satisfied git.
I met him once in Stockport in Greater Manchester when he was deputy prime minister. I was a part of an event looking at illegal money lending, and he came along to give a talk, and I spent a minute or two talking to him.
What did you think?
Like all politicians, he came across very nice.
Yeah, I've had a different experience of him, really. I think he was completely empty, just a vapid, an empty vessel. I actually cited a quote from the poem The Hollow Man. We are the hollow man. This is how it ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. And I think that's pretty much what we got with him. But anyway, that's the old days. Let's talk about a more serious leader now, and that is Ed Davey. I mean, let's think about the sort of serious impression that he's given. There he is. There he is. Thorpe Park. Does he look like a prime minister to you?
I think we've discussed this before. My opinion of Ed Davey is he's seen how Boris Johnson used playing the clown to win the hearts of the British public, and he's trying to repeat the Boris Johnson play. Unfortunately for Ed Davey, regardless of what you think of Boris Johnson, I know I've come to despise Boris Johnson, but he had charisma. He did play the fool, but he'd been playing a fool all his life. He perfected it. Ed Davey now is an amateur trying to play a fool, and he's succeeding because he comes across only as a fool.
There's so many. I'll just ask if the gallery can put some of the other pictures up. There's so many examples of him doing this. He was challenged during the weekend, during the party conference, for why he does these foolish things. And he said, well, it's the way to draw attention to me, but we have a serious point. That's not it. As you say, Boris Johnson kind of got away with it. That's not what brought him down, because people thought he was quite a laugh. But Ed Davey just doesn't actually have the presence. There he is. There's another example of him. What's he trying to say? The problem is it's called borrowed interest. What does that tell us? Borrowed interest is whenever you do something that draws attention to you, but not necessarily to your cause. I don't understand what he's trying to tell us in that picture.
No, I mean, people who like the Lib Dems will vote Lib Dems regardless of them seeing that photo. People who don't like the Lib Dems will never vote for the Dems. The people on the fence will see that photo and go, they're idiots. Because they're already on the fence. They go, he's an idiot. I'm not voting for idiots. People are looking for serious politicians because we're in serious times. The economy could crash any moment. Civil war could break out. There could be violence everywhere. And we need serious politicians. We don't need clowns anymore.
What do the Lib Dems stand for in your view, Nick? I mean, I could answer the question because I follow it closely because obviously I'm a former Lib Dem MP. But to you, what do you think the Lib Dems look like to the general public? I know you're a sample of one, but you're a valuable one.
I think the Lib Dems brand is basically this. We're Tory light, we're pink and fluffy. If you're a nice person and you don't want to vote Labour, then you should vote Lib Dems because we're nice people.
And that's about it.
That's it.
Okay, that's not really a very strong reason for being.
It's not, is it? He was on TV the other day. He got asked 10 times, can a woman have a penis? And he couldn't answer the question. He still stuck. Yeah, a couple of days ago. Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, a couple of days ago. He's still stuck in the problems we had 2-3 years ago. He hasn't moved beyond. And that was one of the first things at his conference. Was it last week, a few days ago, whenever the conference was? There was going to be a motion of having a debate at the conference and then voting on it to see if men, biological men, could stand in women's positions in the party. And before it was even announced that we're having the debate, the trans activists within the party got it pulled. They're still fighting the battles from several years ago.
Yeah, this is the problem. I mean, while he's been prancing around, and there's another one. The problem is it's so easy to ridicule him. As I say, I know him well, and when I shared an office with him, two things characterized my experience. Number one, he was almost never in his office. His staff basically ran his constituency work and just about everything else. And secondly, there just wasn't much presence there. He let me down very badly. He encouraged me to stand to be the mayoral candidate for the Liberal Democrats. And then whenever I was persuaded, largely by him, to do it, he was nowhere to be seen. And I don't like that. I don't like disloyalty, to be honest with you. But that's my own personal thing. The big issue is that there just doesn't seem to be any presence. In fact, Columnids in the chat is saying exactly what do they do, these people, other than acting like clowns. And that's the problem. That's exactly what I'm asking. Ed Davey is barely present in the national media because he's not very interesting. With 72 MPs, he should be more present than just about any of his predecessors, but he's just not there. I watched his speech well, if you're watching this live, it was yesterday. If you're watching it in the archive, it could be any length of time ago. And all he wanted to do was talk about Nigel Farage and this ridiculous idea that the choice is between him and Farage. There's no comparison. Nigel Farage is friends with Donald Trump. That's the most powerful man in the Western world. Nigel Farage got more votes than the Liberal Democrats, but not more seats, obviously. Nigel Farage has an agenda which you can fairly clearly define as being important. I would say, this is my opinion, enforcing British border control, a whole lot more besides. He'll junk the climate hoax, as I see it. Ed Davey decided to have a go at Nigel Farage and say the choice is between me and Farage. But that's ridiculous, Nick, because they're at opposite ends of the political spectrum. Ed Davey's got more in common with the joke party, the Greens, than he has with Reform. What's gone wrong? Because the Lib Dems, obviously I had a lot of faith in when I was an MP. The Lib Dems should be the voice of freedom, and they're not.
He's playing to the audience at the conference. So he's trying to say to them, the Tories are done and dusted. Labour are failing. Labour are done and dusted. If those two parties are done and dusted, there's only one party left in this country, and that's the Lib Dems. And if you don't want the Nazi at Reform UK, if you don't want little Trump, then I'm here to save the country. I'm here to carry on the direction we've been going on since post-World War II. Look how amazing our country is. Look how amazing we are as a people. I will continue this journey. And people outside the conference, they'll all believe that in the conference, but outside the conference, people looking at it going, look at this amazing country. We've been declining for decades and decades. We're at each other's throats. You know, the violence could hit any day now. And everyone is sick of all the world policies. And you're saying that's been a success. You're saying if we want more of that, you're the only hope. And they haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue. And it's unfortunate, really, because if I ever wanted to be Lib Dem leader, it would be today. Because today is all set up for the Lib Dems. Tories, may not exist in a decade from now. Labour are atrocious and falling in the polls. There's a new party, Reform UK, which anyone can pick holes in. Lots of their stuff because they're brand new, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're flip flopping all the time. So you can pick holes in them. He should be there going and acting like a prime minister. He should be giving people confidence. He should say, these are the things we'll be doing. These are the serious policies. This is the spending for this policy. Forget Reform UK. They're just a flash in the pan and they're a reaction to things that are going wrong. But we've got the answer. He should be coming across like a statesman, a statesperson. But he just keeps coming across as a clown.
This is the issue. from a strategic point of view, I think Ed Davey's making a huge mistake endlessly gunning for the Conservatives, because Conservative voters have a perfectly good alternative now, which is Reform UK.
Yeah.
And I would personally say, Nick, that if I was a Conservative voter, I'd be much more likely to go to Reform than the Lib Dems for three reasons. First of all, Ed Davey doesn't come across as credible. He comes across as a clown, as Carlamid says in the chat. Carlamid's also we're in a right old mess, aren't we? And that's absolutely true. Also, as they're all millionaires, why would they rock the boat? That's probably true as well. But certainly, Nick Clegg is a millionaire. An unbelievable waste of money, in my view. But the first thing is that the Tories are in a big mess. The second thing is that the votes will go to Reform. The second thing is Keir Starmer is absolutely ruining his own party. Look at that supercilious twit. Doesn't seem to understand how unpopular he is, or if he does, he's not doing much about it. So there's an open goal for the Lib Dems to start taking the middle-class Labour vote back to the Lib Dems, but he's not doing that. And then thirdly, he's promoting these bombing policies. After the show, I'm going to have a look at Ed Davey's inability to define what a man and a woman is. It's pretty basic biology, to be honest with you, Nick. You don't really have to be a qualified doctor to figure it out. But the Lib Dems have always, in my experience, been mired in this obsession with sexual politics. Sex is important. Gender is important. Having the right to live your life as you want is important. But it's not key to life itself. That's the point. And when you watch the Lib Dems, you think that they are thinking it's key to life. Did you know that the women's Liberal Democrats actually got into trouble with the trans community, and there was some kind of censorship almost going on there? These are battles and fights that the general public don't have. They're concerned about idiotic tax increases. They're worried about the fact you can't drive an old car into central London without being fined essentially for it, with the crazy schemes of civic council. They don't spend all their time talking about whether a woman can have a penis. And yet the Lib Dems seem to have managed to reduce their entire raison d'etre to these issues which are central to a small number of people, but peripheral to most of the country. And by the way, Keir Starmer's no better. He said 99% of women don't have a penis. Well, how did he do that research?
Well, yeah, he went to a nightclub and walked around, started cupping people, and yeah,
that's a thought I can't unsee now. I'm tempted to raise some other issues he's got now, but I don't want to get sued. I'm not going to get into that. Yeah. It's a bit of an aside, but it's worth a mention. Did you see that Emmanuel Macron, the French president's wife, apparently is providing some kind of evidence to prove that she's a woman?
Photographic evidence, she says.
Apparently photographic evidence, yeah. That'll confuse Keir Starmer.
Well, don't forget Keir Starmer's favourite women do have penises. Well, that's his favourite type of woman.
Well, did he actually say that? Are you inferring it?
Oh, make a good joke. But before we do get sued, let's go back to Ed Davey. You're right. Ed Davey should be kicking the lunatics out of his party, and he should be trying to win over the moderate Tories and the moderate Labour voters. Yeah. Because don't forget, if you're in Labour at the moment and you're an eco nutcase, well, you've already got the Greens to join. If you are a commie nutcase, you've got the new Hezbollah party to join. Or if you're a Islamist, join there's lots of things you can join. But there's many sensible voters who vote Labour and vote Tories, many sensible voters. And they're looking, and they may not like Reform UK for whatever reasons. He should be attracting all of them into the Lib Dems, but he won't. Well, he is another woke, silly party.
Yeah. But and Ed Davey, I think, made a terrible mistake in his speech. His speech was basically choose between us and Reform. Well, that's not a very difficult choice. He says he said in his speech, if you vote Farage, you'll get Trump's America. Well, okay, so Trump's America.
I'm voting Reform then.
Yeah, exactly. Trump has junked this balmy climate emergency facade. Yeah, I'll vote for that. Trump has thrown all this wokeology in the bin. I'd vote for that. And Trump doesn't seem to be wanting whatever he's been saying recently to bankroll an unwinnable war in Ukraine. I know he's saying now that theoretically somehow the troubled and incompetent leader Vladimir Zelensky can win all the land back. Yeah, there's a non-zero possibility of it, but it's very close to zero, and I want him. If Trump could be the British Prime Minister, I would take it in an instant. So if you look at it, Ed Davey has made a really dangerous comparison. And in actual fact, I tweeted something yesterday. If we can put my tweet up, that would be helpful. Yeah, I put that up. I said, Ed Davey is asking you to choose between him and Nigel Farage. Here's a picture to help you make your choice.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Nigel Farage, he's a characterful chap, great company over dinner, likes a drink, likes a smoke, and a lot of other things. But he comes across as the sort of man who could occupy Downing Street with credibility. Look at Ed Davey throwing himself into the water for some obscure reason.
Even though I don't think people care that much about that. They do care about who the leader is. I don't care, but people do care. There's too much competition on the left of politics, and people like Ed Davey and all the others, what they've not realised is the Overton window was moved. And what they don't realise is post-Second World War, that globalism now is coming to an end, and they think it isn't. They think Farage is the new baddie. And if we can pick on him, it makes us look like leaders. And the people are really behind us. This is a flash in the pan. Reform UK won't do anything. Reform UK will burn out. And then at least we can say, look, we were always here. We were always for the British people. And I just don't think they realise not only is the country changed, Europe has changed, the world's changed, and they're just behind the times. They can't see it. The reason why they can't see it is they don't want it to be true.
Yeah, do you want to just explain the Overton window?
Overton window basically is what we're allowed to talk about in polite society. So a year ago, you weren't allowed to talk about mass migration. Mass deportation. Deportating foreigners. Oh no, you sound like a Nazi. Roll on a year. We've got political parties now going, we're going to deport millions. 2 years ago, you weren't allowed to say that a woman didn't have a penis because that was rude. You couldn't say that because some trans women have penises. Move on 2 years. Virtually everyone's going, women don't have penises. So it's what you're allowed to talk about in polite society.
All right. Yeah. The Overton window, which has made Overton very famous. Naming it after Overton. Overton named it after Overton. I wish I'd thought of that. If I could call something the OPIC window, that's fine. But the Overton window does tend to define, as you say, what we can talk about in polite society. I think Charlie Kirk, who was murdered, I think he talked about the fact that Donald Trump had moved the Overton window in America to a new place. What I think Donald Trump has actually done is shift the political debate to where most people really are. Yeah. But they've been afraid to say it because they think, oh, well, if I challenge the woke transsexual agenda, then I'll be regarded as a homophobe. Or if I question the climate emergency, I'll be regarded as a climate change, in brackets, Holocaust denier. And I think that Donald Trump has successfully done what the late Charlie Kirk was right. He said Charlie Kirk was indeed part of that movement. And Ed Davey's done nothing to shift anything anywhere.
Well, if you look at him when he's in the water and he's got those costumes on, it looks like he's shifted a load of pies.
Yeah, I said the other day that if the Deputy Prime Minister, who would have predicted it, the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy lost his job in Parliament, then he could be work as a junior taste monitor in Greggs, and which is the bakers. If you're watching this international, very successful bakery shop in Britain, chain. And I can't remember who said it, and apologies if you're watching, but what made me laugh out loud is somebody responded to that tweet by saying, yes, he can bankrupt the company one pie at a time. Which I thought was quite good. So we've got Ed Davey probably correctly saying that Farage is the one to beat. But you watch Ed Davey messing around, but then we've got Nigel Farage in communication and obviously in association with Donald Trump. To me, that's a pretty powerful relationship. And whether you like Donald Trump or not, it beggars belief to me that Nigel Farage was not invited to the state banquet when he would have been the best friend of Donald Trump in the whole room. And Ed Davey was, and he turned it down. Imagine turning down an invitation to a royal banquet. Who's advising him?
Politics. It's probably rightly, correctly thinking this will go down well with my supporters. Because again, he's anti-Trump. That's why he's anti-Farage and anti-Reform UK. He's trying to paint the right of politics as nasty, evil, not to be engaged with, beyond the pale. That's how you get violence, when you keep painting your political opponents as beyond the pale. And not attending that dinner is a signal for that. Donald Trump is not good enough for me to sit down with. He may be the most powerful man in the world, but it's just virtue signaling all the time. And that's all the Lib Dems can do, is virtue signaling. And again, I'll say it again, he doesn't understand the world's changed, the country's changed. It doesn't matter anymore now. And when you see pictures of Nigel Farage stood next to Trump, you have to think to yourself, when was the last time a serious, no, they are serious because they're 35% in the polls, a serious political party was challenging to become the next government and had a leader that nearly everyone's heard of for at least 2 decades, who who's loved, not loved, but he's known all over the press, and he's friends with the most powerful person in the world. Not just met him, but friends with the most powerful person in the world. And that's why Farage is scaring all these people, because at the moment it looks like he's a dead cert to win the next election.
Partly with the TV station, there's quite a lot of competition in the media world, and I see some of my competitors moaning expressly about me. I'm always happy when that happens, because it means that we're the people to beat, if you like. We're the people that they're benchmarking against. And I think what Ed Davey doesn't realise is this. The Tories under Kenny Badenoch are going nowhere. They're going down, actually. The poll rating's going down. Keir Starmer couldn't be doing a better job of ruining his own party. So they're both impotent. So when Ed Davey starts mentioning, I think, Nigel Farage 30 times or something in his speech, he's simply helping Reform UK. Now, I'm not unhappy about that, but Ed Davey should be very unhappy about it, and his party should be, because he's not going to win any new votes by saying that, because he's aiming at the wrong target. I think Nigel Farage actually put a message out saying that given how obsessed Ed Davey is in Nigel Farage, he'd be willing to pay for some psychiatric help for him. And this is the thing. No one really takes Ed Davey seriously, and it's his own fault. And then we get back to that. I don't know if we can get that picture up again of Ed Davey throwing himself in the water, but if we can get that up, we got Nigel Farage looking like a prime minister, draping himself in the flag in a serious way. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Ed Davey doing this, and then even more embarrassingly, they handed out British Union Jack flags and all this at the conference. So, well, we're British too. We agree with the United Kingdom, but all of it builds Farage. I remember Do It All used to have this advert saying, how do you do it all, do it? And it looked like a B&Q ad, because they were obviously aiming at B&Q. And every time I saw it, I thought about B&Q. And so I do it all has now gone bust, probably because of their dreadful marketing. But when I watched the Lib Dem conference, I just kept thinking reform. Here's the thing: buy Coke, don't buy Coca-Cola. Oh, I better buy a Coca-Cola.
When I saw the conference and waving all the flags, I thought something slightly different. I looked at it and I thought straight away, we're winning. We're pushing left-wing woke parties into adopting our flag and waving it and celebrating being British. We haven't seen any parties do this for decades and decades. And they're doing it because they're scared. They can see power slipping from their hands. They can see the Overton window changing. They can see the support for Nigel Farage and reform. And they're going, we need some of that. And if we don't wave the flag, we're going to lose support because people think we're anti-British, anti-English. So they've started waving the flag. I'm happy with that. I'm happy that we're pushing other parties down the road we want them to go. It's a win. And they think it was a win for them. It wasn't a win for them. They looked weak. They look pathetic. They look like they're following the people. And we need political parties that lead the country, not just follow what's ever popular at the time. So win.
Yeah, you're quite right. And Nigel Farage looking very happy in that picture must laugh every time any of the other parties attack him. Keir Starmer attacks him. Kemi Badenoch doesn't attack him very much, but then we don't hear much from Badenoch. And Ed Davey attacks him. Well, if everyone's attacking you, you're probably in the lead. and as a result of that, and this Overton window, which I think we've quite comprehensively explained now, the Overton window has shifted so that Nigel Farage is right in the middle of that window. Somebody said to me, the problem with the Liberal Democrats is the Overton window has shifted so fast and so far that they're likely to fall out of it. And I think that's true. When you look through that window, you see Nigel Farage. When you look at the public, when you listen to the public, you hear Nigel Farage. Why? Because he wants to orders. And as Nigel Farage himself said the other day, when people ask him, why would you take such a radical position? His answer is, it only seems radical to you because we've gone so far away from common sense. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said. So we've got Nigel Farage in the right place at the right time and Ed Davey in the wrong place at the right time, because Ed Davey isn't the man who can deliver anything substantial, I think. And basically, maybe that picture is a metaphor of what he's doing to the party. I'm not sure.
If you can't make hay while your political opponents and it's raining all over them, if you can't make hay then there's nothing you can do. Like I said before, Labour are done. Tories are still failing. The Lib Dem, this is a perfect opportunity for Lib Dem to show what they're about, attract votes and grow the party. And if they can't do it now, then they're never going to do it. And apart from Nigel Farage, we don't have any leaders of any parties who are decent politicians. You know, we've got Keir Starmer, a middle manager. Kemi Badenoch, people thought she was going to be good, but she's completely failed. Look at Ed Davey. Look at the lunatic who now leading the Greens. He thinks he can hypnotise women to get bigger breasts. That's what he was. That's what he was selling 10 years ago. Of course.
He then denied it in some mealy-mouthed way and then apologised. This is how amateur he is. He denied he did it and then he apologised for doing it. It's ridiculous.
Well, I wish he'd stopped hypnotising me because my breasts are getting bigger. So I just wish he'd stop doing it to me. But you look at all the leaders. None of the leaders are decent. None of the leaders inspire you. Regardless of if you like Nigel Farage now, and I've got real doubts about Nigel Farage and Reform UK, but you look at him and you go, I'd vote for Nigel Farage. Look what he's saying. No, he's a serious politician. He's coming up with answers to our problems. I'm not saying the answers are going to work, but at least he's got some answers. At least he's saying these are the solutions. I'm going to tackle the big problems. He's not just tinkering with the edges. But all the other leaders, I mean, Keir Starmer is the dead duck prime minister. He can't do anything and won't do anything. Kemi Badenoch is scared stiff of upsetting other MPs who all seem to be left-wing Lib Dems in her party. The Greens are irrelevant. Lib Dems can't make any gains when everybody else around them is failing. It's just, at the moment, it's the Nigel Farage show in British politics, because he's the only one who's a good communicator and seems to be coming up with solutions to problems. And that's what people want to hear. People want to hear, can you fix what's going on? Can you fix it?
And he said, when he said, no ifs, no buts, if you come here illegally, you get sent back and you don't get the chance to claim asylum. And then the wokerati went, oh, you can't say that. Of course you can. Oh, the outrage of having flags on lampposts. Go to America. People have flagpoles in their garden with the stars and stripes. No one thinks that's jingoistic. Nick, if you had one piece of advice for Ed Davey, what would it be?
My initial piece of advice would be find a better leader, then resign so they can take your place. But if he's not going to do that, which politicians never do that, my advice would be try to be the party you were 2-3 decades ago. Try to be a serious alternative, because at the moment you're perfect to take all the middle voters off the Tories, off Labour. I know lots of Tory voters who are looking for an alternative. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't like Farage as a person, so won't go to Reform. They're looking for a serious party to vote for. There'll be lots of Labour voters in the same position. I'm a Labour voter. I don't like Labour anymore. I'm never voting Tory, but the Lib Dems are mental. If you can become a serious politician with serious policies and start explaining how he's going to solve some of our major problems, then he could attract so many votes.
Thanks so much, Nick. I don't imagine you'll be standing as a Lib Dem anytime soon.
Not unless Ed Davey finds me in a nightclub and cups me.
I didn't expect you to say that. I really didn't. And if you don't know what Nick means, I'm not going to explain it now.